So like many of you out there, I love my Steam Deck. It has become a major part of my gaming routine, and that made upgrading to my OLED Steam Deck a no-brainer. However, even when I did upgrade it, I was still on the lookout for something better. My biggest priority being a bigger screen. So, enter the Legion Go, which I've been keeping an eye on this for a while, but I had some concerns. However, since the OLED Steam Deck is still missing Windows drivers, I caved and I bought one. And I was curious how it compared to the Steam Deck I already had. Now, to set proper expectations, my goal with this review is to focus on gamers with average technical skills. I did a few optimization steps that you could easily find on Reddit, which I'll briefly cover at the end of the video. However, the main focus on this video is the performance out of the box of the Legion Go. Later on, I'll do a more in-depth video on seeing just how much performance I can squeeze out of this with more in-depth changes. The Legion Go's screen is its obvious standout feature that immediately grabbed mine and likely yours attention if you're watching this video right now. Despite it not being OLED like the new Steam Deck, the size makes for an awesome gaming experience. So let's talk about that screen a little bit and what makes it so different from the Steam Deck. So I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently, and I think even just looking at this really shows it. Compared to the OLED Steam Deck, you're adding another 1.4 diagonal inches of screen space, which may not sound like a huge increase, but it is very notable on a screen this small. However, the screen is not perfect. The Legion Go lacks an anti-glare option that the Steam Deck has, and that is very noticeable with gaming outside. Since there is no built-in option for this, I'm going to need to look for an aftermarket solution like an anti-glare screen protector to mitigate that issue that my Steam Deck takes care of out of the box. Then there are the fingerprints, and I had to be very careful about cleaning this before recording this video. The Legion Go is a fingerprint magnet. It's easy to clean off, but it's fairly annoying to need to do regularly since the touchscreen is critical for launching games. So I may need to find a fingerprint resistant cover. Hopefully one that's also anti-glare. Now, on the screen's resolution side, the Legion Go offers a nice jump at 2560 by 1800 compared to the Steam Deck's 1280 by 800. However, given this size of screen, I'm not really convinced that higher resolution is necessary. But it is there if you personally feel like you would want a higher resolution at the cost of performance or visual quality. Speaking of the resolution, let's talk about the performance. This big beautiful screen is worthless if we can't actually run the games that we want. And my experience with the Legion Go's performance has been largely positive. So I'm keeping the resolution at 1280 by 800, which is what it defaults to and is the same as the Steam Deck. And I'm sticking with the default balanced TDP. For me, this is a sweet spot between performance and battery life, without needing to modify these settings for every game. For a couple of examples, Cyberpunk 2077 on the Steam Deck preset generally hovers between 45 and 50 frames per second, with occasional spikes up to about 60 FPS. Elden Ring was the curious case. On the high preset, the FPS was typically in the low to mid 40s. However, I've been encountering sporadic frame drops, something that I've not observed in any other game, and one that is persistent even after going down to the medium preset. So I'm not exactly sure what the exact cause of this is, so there's going to need to be some more optimization investigation. Beyond those two examples, the Legion Go has delivered very good performance across a wide variety of games, with Elden Ring's frame drops being the exception rather than the rule. Looking ahead a little bit, I do plan on doing a deeper performance analysis comparing the Steam Deck and Legion Go under various configurations, but these early findings suggest that the Legion Go's performance capabilities are not going to be a problem with most games you try to throw at it. It may or may not be better than what you get on the Steam Deck, and I'm not claiming that it is. Moving on to battery life, something that is just as important as performance when talking about a portable gaming device. And the reality is, the Legion Go just doesn't quite match up to the Steam Deck. And the difference is pretty significant and undeniable. With the performance settings and game presets previously mentioned, for titles like Elden Ring and Cyberpunk 2077, the Legion Go offers about 2 hours of playtime for each. And this isn't that surprising given the larger screen, which demands more power. And considering it's already going to be heavier, adding a bigger battery, I think would have been a worse solution. And it isn't like the Steam Deck already had an all-day battery life. I still couldn't fly across the country and not need to think about how I was going to charge it. So just like before, I just carry an external battery pack as a fairly simple workaround. Now, like I said, this thing is heavy. When I first got my Steam Deck, I didn't use my Switch for a while. And when I went back to it, it kind of felt like a cheap toy in comparison. Now, going from the Steam Deck to the Legion Go, I'm experiencing the same thing. The Legion Go's weight makes the Steam Deck feel surprisingly light. Initially, the Legion Go's weight caused me some concern. I had some notable fatigue during extended play sessions. However, I did quickly get used to its weight. It is worth mentioning that it does feel balanced, without any weird weight distribution that might get in the way of enjoying it. But for anyone sensitive to the weight of the Steam Deck, I would recommend trying the Legion Go in person, especially if you're planning on long gaming sessions, maybe laying back in bed or similar positions. To put the weight in a little bit of perspective, the OLED Switch is just 0.92 pounds. The OLED Steam Deck is 1.41 pounds, and the Legion Go beats them at 1.87 pounds. Now, an interesting feature of the Legion Go, which I've not really talked about yet, is the detachable controllers. Removing them reduces the weight to about 1.42 pounds, which is much closer to the Steam Deck's weight. However, since you need the controllers to play, I'm not really sure how valuable that really is, but I thought it was interesting, so I was going to mention it. So far, I've been pretty positive about the Legion Go, but now is where I start to have some serious problems with it. First, I'm just going to get it out of the way. The speakers suck, and there's just no sugarcoating it. They kind of just completely lack any depth, particularly just no bass, making it very underwhelming. And to be clear, they function well for basic needs. It isn't like the sound is distorted and you will miss dialogue or other important things. It just sounds dull. Just for some important context, my benchmarks for good sound come from devices like a MacBook Pro and the iPhone. But even when comparing the Legion Go to the Steam Deck, it just doesn't compare, and it's honestly kind of embarrassing. Sure, headphones are an easy fix, and they bypass the issue entirely, but it's a solution that shouldn't be necessary, and better speakers would significantly improve the Legion Go. Now, you may have noticed by now that I have not talked about the Legion Go's controllers much, and that's because they're a bit of a mixed bag. Initially, getting used to the controller layout was challenging my muscle memory, like pressing down on the directional pad instead of right. That is the kind of thing that you get used to, and it's not necessarily a fault of the controller, but things are in different places. But then, for some reason, they decided to put the buttons to pull up the Legion Go software, where you would normally expect start and select on every other controller. I do not understand how they decided to do that. Even Nintendo, which gives us some interesting controllers, knows what buttons should be in this location. Trying to pause and instead launching the Legion Go software is really bad. However, thankfully, after quite a bit of time of being very annoyed with this, there's a software toggle to switch the buttons. And the D-pad is fine, I think, for my need. But I don't play games that rely on it for a primary method of control. It's critical, but still secondary in games like Elden Ring and Cyberpunk. But it's still not great. So if you plan on playing a game that a D-pad is the primary control method, this probably isn't for you. Now, the thing that stopped me from getting the Legion Go when it was first announced was the back triggers. Ideally, my mobile gaming setup would mirror my Elite Xbox controller, so I can easily go back and forth between various gaming devices, particularly for Halo Infinite, which I heavily rely on these back triggers. Unlike other Steam Deck competitors, the Legion Go actually does have these back triggers, but the two on the right controller are arranged horizontally, so they're not really useful for a one-to-one setup. And this limits what games I can play on it. And unless I can find another solution, I'm not going to be playing Halo Infinite on this, which is kind of depressing. Now, There's this interesting FPS mode with the right controller that lets you detach it and use it like a mouse. On paper, this works fine. And I know looking online that some people like it, but it also limits what buttons you have access to. So if you need a lot of controls for your game, I don't think it would work particularly well. I mean, you don't have the face buttons anymore. So personally, I don't see ever using this. And the trackpad, I mean, it's fine. I know some people have complained that it only has one or that it sucks. Honestly, I just disable it to avoid it being triggered. I never use it on the Steam Deck either, so I don't really understand the need for it with a touchscreen. It is a nice touch that you can detach both controllers like you can on the Nintendo Switch, but the actual mechanism to attach it is not as smooth. And that's probably for legal reasons. However, there is a big part of the detachable controller that is not valuable right now, but I hope becomes a thing. I would love for there to be alternate controllers, and I would quickly buy one that ditches the FPS mode features that I won't use and gives me the 4 back buttons how I want. But so far, there has been no indication of that happening, and no third party saying they will either. But I know it's still early for this product, so I'm hopeful that this will eventually happen if the device is popular enough. Now, we have the Legion Go software. So I've talked about it a little bit, but remember how I said that it was becoming annoying that I opened up the Legion Go software instead of pausing? That should probably tell you everything you need to know. The Legion Go software has two parts: a slide out quick panel for seeing battery life and managing performance levels, and some quick settings. The panel itself is fine. I think it serves a good purpose, but the biggest problem is how slow it can be to show up, particularly if you've not opened it in a while. But then we have the actual Legion Space software, which I feel like it is just attempting to do too much. It has the basics like mapping buttons, all of your settings, driver BIOS updates, which is all great. But then they also tried to make it into a gaming hub, where you can launch games, install various stores, and other things. Since it's doing so many things, it ends up being slow to start and just kinda clunky. Which is made worse by this dedicated button. That means that you could very easily launch it during a game and be trying to get back to your game, but it just gets in the way. The number of times that I've accidentally clicked this button, even after remapping it, and I switch back to the game, and then this window just pops right back up once it finishes loading. It is incredibly frustrating, especially when that game is out on running. Not mad at all. I honestly just wish the software didn't exist, or it was just limited to settings and maintenance with no need for a dedicated button. The idea behind the Legion Go software is understandable: to improve the usability on the device where Windows might seem less ideal for a small screen device. However, personally, I feel like the idea that Windows struggles on small screens may be somewhat exaggerated. In practice, the challenge of using Windows on a device like the Legion Go are mostly confined to infrequent tasks. Adjusting Windows-specific settings, installing non-gaming software are not the easiest on a touchscreen of this size, but the core activity of installing and managing games through platforms like Steam is fine, especially if you just want to use Steam's big picture mode, which even gives you an interface that is nearly identical to the Steam Deck's. Once you're in the game, the underlying operating system is irrelevant. So this is also where sticking with Windows as the OS starts to shine. It is what developers are targeting and releasing games for. With Windows, you're not going to have as many compatibility issues as you would with SteamOS. Games that I had trouble with on my Steam Deck, like Kingdom Hearts and Geometry Wars, just worked. So I really don't think that the use of Windows on the Legion Go should be seen as a drawback, but instead a positive. You get better game compatibility, less concern about updates breaking your games, and you can use all of the stores and services without issues. Sure, the OS is not the most tuned for small screens, or touchscreens for that matter, but clicking a game icon on your desktop is still pretty easy. In summary, there's no perfect device out there that has no flaws, and that includes the Legion Go and the Steam Deck. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. Priced at about $100 more than the 1TB OLED Steam Deck, the Legion Go has a better, larger screen and a bit of a boost in performance. Though you do lose the OLED screen. For me, that bigger screen alone justifies the price. For my day-to-day mobile gaming, the Legion Go has largely replaced my Steam Deck. Not being able to fully replicate the back buttons how I want them to be for Halo Infinite means that I'm going to continue to use both devices, but I'm going to keep hoping that I can find a solution to that. And the Steam Deck still has its place, especially if I want a slightly lighter and smaller device while traveling. But again, I just really like this screen. It significantly improves how much I can see in games, and particularly text that was designed for a bigger screen. There are just a lot of games that don't scale text size well to smaller screens. And I would have updated to the Legion Go even if the resolution, refresh rate, and performance was identical just for this bigger screen. But with all three of those at least a little bit improved, it is easy for me to recommend with a few of the caveats I've already talked about. And it does seem like they're working on improving the software. And I hope I can come back in a few months and say, no, this software is great. It just sucked in the beginning. I mentioned that I took some basic optimization steps to maximize the Legion Go's performance with minimal effort, targeting improvements that any user could implement by following Reddit. This includes uninstalling unnecessary pre-installed software, disabling the virtualization and Windows Hello, setting the Legion Go to hibernate instead of sleep, and adjusting the BIOS settings for VRAM. I want to explore more in-depth optimization that could be done in another video, just to see how far I can push the performance of the Legion Go. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a gaming handheld? Which one? And what influenced your choice? Are you considering getting a Legion Go now? Thank you so much for watching. There's more content on the Legion Go and the Steam Deck coming, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. I'll see you next time.